Hi there, I'm Kian Cruz, author of Dad Bod, and you're listening to Pop Goes Your World.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 316, the worst movie titles of all time. Chris McBrien along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. We spent the past two shows doing movie reviews, so this time out it's back to a topic. And Derek and I thought it might be fun to take a look at some of the worst movie titles of all time. Very interesting topic. But before we get around to those, Derek, what pop culture have you been able to get around to in this past week?
Hey, Chris. I had a chance to take in a few things, including, finally, a documentary. It was actually a documentary miniseries, but we'll get to that.
We'll get our producer to cue up the song.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
So I'll start with a movie.
Okay.
So I had a chance to watch a movie, actually a big movie. It's called Conclave. It's nominated for Best Picture Oscar. It just dropped on Amazon. It's a big prestige picture from this year. It stars Ralph Fiennes and John Lithgow and Stanley Tucci. I think Isabella Rossellini, if I remember, is the female lead. Well, more of supporting than a lead. Anyway, it's a movie about the election of a pope, which could be very timely given that the real life pope is not doing so well in the health department. But anyway. The movie's fantastic. Have you had a chance to see this one yet? It's on Amazon Prime.
I was just you were mentioning the Pope, and I was going to say something, and then I was like biting my tongue. I was going to say the Grim Reaper is stuck in traffic.
Holy cow.
I'm probably going to go to hell for that. So,
yeah, just for that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Nothing else,
of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, carry on.
Anyway, I thought it was great. It was apparently it's based on a very good book, like a best-selling novel. And the movie's great. The story was great. The performances are great. The way the movie shot was good. Like it's, when you watch. Well, for me anyway, it's like, especially around award season, it's like, well, I'm going to sit down and watch this movie because it's nominated for awards. Maybe it's a movie I wasn't normally going to watch. And sometimes you sit down, and you watch it, and you're like, well, yeah, of course it was nominated for Best Picture. This movie's great. This movie was one of those movies. I was like, I heard good things, but I've seen a lot of stinkers this year, and it was really nice to watch a movie where I'm like, that was really good. So I really enjoyed it. So if you haven't seen Conclave and you've got Amazon Prime, and I think most people do, it's on there now at no extra charge. So I would suggest giving it a while. I think it runs just under 2 hours, so it's not like it's one of these ridiculously long epics that has 45 minutes in it you don't need. It was. The length was perfect. So, no, I really, really enjoyed it.
That's what she said.
Oh, my.
Fair enough. Another thing I had a chance to watch that you had actually mentioned last week on last week's show was Saturday Night Live just celebrated their 50th anniversary. And they did a lot of programming around this milestone.
Yes, I was talking about that last week. You're right. Yeah.
So the Saturday Night Live 50, the homecoming concert. So I had a chance to watch this. I had recorded it. You had talked about it last week.
Yeah, I didn't like it. Yeah.
You didn't like it. I don't know what's wrong with you. I watched this thing this week, and I thought it was fantastic. And I asked you very specific questions about it, and you were like, no. And I'm like, you were wrong on all the questions I asked you.
What were the questions I was wrong on?
No, that's not what it was like. I asked you, I said, like, does it have, like, artists coming out and performing songs from other artists and doing covers and having guest artists perform with artists they don't sing with? And you're like, no, none of that. That never happened. Every artist that came out did some covers of other artists. And
I thought I mentioned that. They did songs of other people, and they didn't even do their own songs.
You said the opposite. I specifically asked you that. You're like, no, that didn't happen. So anyway, I thought it was fantastic. Now, I will agree with you on a couple of things. Because it was a live, I watched it on a recording, but when it was happening live, and they needed time between the acts to switch out the set. And so they had the Saturday Night Live cast members come out and do various sketches and bring back some of their music related characters to entertain the crowd and sort of, don't look at the man behind the curtain while he pulls out the new drum kit. Watch this performer. So some of them were definitely better than others. Some of them felt long, painful, and unnecessary, but I understand why they were there. I guess it's better than just having everyone sit there in complete silence.
But they had 2 other stages. There were like 3 stages in total. Because there was that big center one, and then there was 2 ones on the wings. So they could easily like flip it over to the other. I don't know.
Again, I don't know how the behind the scenes works, but some of them were good. Some of them were less, not so great.
I agree.
But overall, I thought it was fantastic. I thought there was a few artists on there that I'm like, maybe I wasn't a huge fan of, but I thought they did a good job. You talked about how you thought Bad Bunny was terrible. I thought he was one of the best performers on that. I don't really know his music, but I thought he did a great job. So, I mean, this is one of those examples of you don't know anything new and you need to be educated, and I'm educated. Bad Bunny did a great performance. So, if you didn't like it and your kids didn't like it, that's fine. But I don't think you're in the majority on that one. And there was a lot of the stuff that was I thought was really, really well done. So I really enjoyed it. Again, partly I'm a huge Saturday Night Live fan. Partly I'm a big fan of most of the artists that were performing. So again, it may not be for everybody, but I thought it was a great variety of artists. And I kept thinking,
like I mentioned last week though too, like I straight out, I'll be honest, like the musical performances have always been one of my least favorite parts of Saturday Night Live.
That's fair.
And I know some people think that's crazy. I like the sketches. I like the performers. That's it. But
sure.
The music, could care less.
Yeah. Anyway, so I liked it. They've been running it over and over again on the various channels, so it should be pretty easy to pick up if you haven't seen it and you're interested. Now, I will again remind you, they also did a documentary about the musical guests over the years.
That was fantastic,
and that one was
I like that. Yeah,
if you're only going to watch one of the two, I would say go for the documentary and forego the performance one. But if you're an SNL junkie and you need everything, then give them both a chance. So, all right. And then finally, I had a chance to watch a documentary.
For 40 days and 40 nights, he watches documentaries. He likes to learn about the world. It's Derek's Documentaries. Derek's Documentaries.
There's a nice little parody song for you. There you go. All right. What documentary did you get a chance to watch?
All right. So as I've been mentioning in almost every show for the last few months, Netflix is really getting to know my tastes. And so it said, hey, you like documentaries and you like heists? Here's a documentary about a heist. I'm like, all right, I'm all in. Let's see this. It's called This Is a Robbery, the world's biggest art heist. And again, the algorithm knows I'm a big Boston Bruins fan, and it goes, this art heist took place in Boston. We think you might like this. So it was just all the things piling on top of each other. It's on Netflix. It's 4 one-hour episodes. I do feel that 4 one-hour episodes was probably a little much. I think they very easily could have trimmed it down to 3. I kind of felt the last 2 dragged on a little bit and tended to keep repeating things that they had already talked about. But overall, I did enjoy it. In the early 90s, there was an art heist in a museum in Boston. St. Patrick's Day was Saturday, and then on the Sunday, they had the St. Patrick's Day parade. So because most of the law enforcement was doing crowd control for St. Patrick's Day in Boston, because if you weren't aware, a few people have a couple of beverages on that particular day.
No.
Yeah. And it's possible that some of them might have been a little rowdy if they were over intoxicated. There weren't a lot.
My last name is Mick Bryan. I don't know anything about what you're talking about.
Yeah, of course not. So it was sort of a perfect storm where these thieves felt this was the perfect time to do it. They pretended to be police officers. They talked their way to the museum. They ended up overpowering the 2 part-time security guards and stole $500 million worth of art that has still never been recovered.
Wow.
And a huge part of the documentary is that in the 90s, art theft was not really seen as a big deal. When you could put a mob boss in jail, which was much flashier for the television and the newspapers, nobody cared if a couple of Rembrandts got stolen. But here we are 30 years later. The paintings are estimated to be worth, if they were recovered now, would probably be worth closer to $1 billion, given the rarity of these paintings, the fact they've been missing for so long. And they still have no idea. there's all this conjecture and suspicion, and they lay out all these possible suspects about who could have and who might have and who would have and who had motive. But a lot of these guys had ties to organized crime and have died. Many of them were killed. Many of them died in prison. So it's possible these paintings will never, ever be recovered. But there is still, I think it's a $10 million reward if anyone knows anything about them, which they talk about at the end of the series. So anyway.
Why would you steal something like that? It's not like you go and sell it.
Well, that's
one of a kind. Like, they're going to catch you right away. You know,
well, that's what they talk about in the documentary of like, why would they do it and how would they move it and who would perceive this as valuable knowing it was stolen? It was actually that part I found was quite fascinating.
It's almost like they just did it for the thrill of it.
Well, I don't want to spoil it because I do think that if anyone's interested, this is a good watch. Even just I would say watch the first episode, and if you're not completely on board, you're not going to miss much by skipping the rest of them. But the first one sort of lays out all the things you need to know, and then the next 3 episodes sort of go really deep into the rabbit hole. But no, I enjoyed it. I would say probably a B+, A- for the series. If it was 3 instead of 4 episodes, I'd probably rank it a little higher. But it's about an art heist. It takes place in Boston. It checks a lot of my boxes. It was quite good. So it's called This Is a Robbery, the world's biggest art heist. It's on Netflix.
Very cool. This week I did something with my wife. And it's family friendly, I can tell you.
I was going to say, do we need to bring our producer in?
No.
Get the bleeps ready?
That's always, an option here on the show. So my wife and I finished watching Somebody Somewhere. Remember I mentioned that to you before that show?
I thought you had watched them all already.
No. We watched a bunch of them, but then we finished watching it. So we watched the last episode of season 3, which turns out is the last episode ever for the show, apparently. Like, I'm not 100% sure what went down in regard, to the production of the show. But it didn't have like some big finale where everything gets wrapped up nicely. It felt more like just the season ended and then HBO decided not to go ahead with another season. Like the streaming equivalent of canceling a TV show these days, I guess. But anyway, the reason I mention it is because the show was amazing. Like, I mentioned this before. I remember you started watching it.
I got about halfway through the first season. And then honestly, I just had so many competing things. It's still on my watch list. I'll go back to it eventually.
You enjoyed it. I thought your take on it was interesting to me because you were like, I like the show, but I wouldn't recommend this to just anyone. Yeah, because it's not for everyone, and that's cool. But this show, man, it's just so real. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, the show is about friendship, like true, deep, meaningful friendship. It is maybe the best TV show I've seen in 20 years or more. Like, it's right up there with Ted Lasso for me.
Yeah, you're not alone. A lot of people have sort of had that same kind of praise for it. But I stick to my guns from the episodes I saw. I do not think it's for everyone, but I think if you're digging it, you're really gonna like it. Like, it's one of those ones you love it or hate it, no middle ground.
I'm trying to figure out a way to describe the show. And I'm struggling. So I'm going to give it my best shot. So this is what I would say. Watching all of Somebody Somewhere is like having a really, really good meal. You're sad when it's over, but you feel full, and it takes time to digest.
That's a really good way to describe it. I like that.
Yeah, it's the best way I can put it into words. Like, it's just, that's my experience with Somebody Somewhere. So anyway, I just wanted to share that I got a chance to watch it, and I have this.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
So, Derek, as I'm sure you know, Lance, it's not a very popular name these days. But in medieval times, people were named Lance a lot.
I think you should stick that one back in the stone right next to Excalibur. This technology's no good. I'm an old man, and oh my God, and I wish it was a picture tube. Like, hey,
put that one in your pipe and smoke it.
Oh my God, the world could come to an end. I mean,
I know Derek, he wasn't really mad at me for that.
I'm not even going to go down that road.
It's like watching Coronation Street.
I swear I will not kill anybody.
The brother from another planet.
Turn the sound on.
My goodness. So no surprise around here, Derek, you and I are huge movie fans, and we got talking recently. And we realized that there's a lot of movies with really bad titles. So we thought it might be fun to run down our personal top 5 worst movie titles lists, you know? And the thing is, it doesn't necessarily mean the movie itself is bad, although in most cases, you know, I'm going to assume the movie stinks. But these are just like the worst movie titles. So Derek, before we get started, like, did you put any parameters on your lists? Or like, you usually like to have some rules in place. So why don't you just tee this up?
I need a little structure.
Okay.
So when we talked about doing this as a topic, I was just sort of like, okay, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. Because sometimes we decide well ahead of time what our topics are going to be, and we have tons of time to do our homework. And other times it's a few days before the show, and we're madly communicating, we're texting like, what do you want to do this week? How about this title? No. How about this one? No. How about this? And this was one of those ones that we sort of were like, we were running close to the deadline, and we're like, how about this? And I was like, okay, fine. This is the best of the worst topics that we have to pick from. And then the more I started thinking about it and the more I started digging into it, I actually really started to get into this topic a lot. Like, I really enjoyed doing the homework for this one. But what I quickly realized is there are movies that have bad titles, like dumb titles, but they're still descriptive of what the movie actually is about. And that was sort of where I drew the line. Was, to me, even a bad movie with a bad title, like if the title is, you know, the guy who robs banks and gets on a spaceship and flies to Mars, like that's a terrible title.
Right.
But if that's what the movie's about, I don't think it's a bad title because it tells you what the movie's about. So what I was trying to really focus on were movies where the title gives you no idea whatsoever about what the movie is about. Now, the likelihood of someone going to see a movie knowing only the title and nothing else is pretty unlikely, especially in today's day and age.
Right.
Normally now there's huge marketing campaigns. There are trailers, on TV and online. You see, in many cases, there are multiple posters that are available, especially for large movies. You have posters. And so you can call a movie something, let's say, cryptic or a little off center when it comes to like, it's not so much, this is the movie about a guy who robbed a bank and got away in a getaway car. And you can call it like, Fancy Heister or something, like something where it's like it plays on the thing. And because if it's combined with a poster of a guy holding a gun driving a fast car, you can put those things together and go, oh, okay, that's what this movie's probably about. I really just tried to focus on, if all you said to me was, there's a new movie coming out called X, what do you think it's about? Would you go and see it? And so that was really what I was looking for, were movies where the title is so absurd, or so absurd when taken out of context of the movie, because I haven't seen the movie yet, that it does no favors to this film. Why would anyone possibly see this movie if this is the title? Like, to say this movie has a terrible title, but it has a huge actor attached to it, again, that's kind of cheating. I'm just looking at the title, completely alone, completely isolated. So with that in mind, that's how I put my list together. No matter how ridiculous the title was, if it described the movie, didn't make the cut. I'm looking for titles that have absolutely nothing to do with the movie in any reasonable way.
See, I definitely had some titles that I considered and even made it into my list that do describe the movie, in some cases too well. That's for sure. But I will say this. We've done this before, where we do these top 5 lists. It's a very common format on our show. I could have done probably 3 top 5 lists on this topic. As I started to kind of go through them and like look at these titles, like, there's so many bad ones. So I have so many that I have some honorable mentions. Do you have any honorable mentions?
I literally have one, but I want you to rhyme down your list first, because I know you have a bunch.
So let me go through my whole list of honorable mentions, okay? 1991's V.I. Warshawski. It was with Kathleen Turner. I don't know if you ever remember that.
I remember the poster.
Yeah.
I never saw it.
Yeah, her standing there, like, it was almost like a James Bond, female James Bond kind of thing. Stupid title. To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. I think it's supposed to be like from the salutations of a letter or something, but it's just dumb title. Here's one that fits your category of like being way too descriptive, but even though I don't think it's fully descriptive, The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill but Came Down a Mountain.
So I've actually seen that movie.
Yep.
It's got Hugh Grant and
Yes.
and Cole Meany from Star Trek. It's actually pretty good, and I think that's a great title for that movie because it tells me exactly what it's about.
Okay.
So I'm disagreeing with you on that one.
Fine. So he went up a hill. So 2001, Tom Green, Freddy Got Fingered. The title is
adult film?
What's that?
Is that an adult film?
No. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
What is it?
Why or Freddy with an IE? Is it a man named Freddy or a woman named Freddy?
Maybe, I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. So the thing with this is it's trying desperately to be funny, but it's just obnoxious. I don't think it's a good idea to make a movie title like this. So in 2003, there was a lot of success with American Idol. So they came out with a film called From Justin to Kelly.
I remember that. Weren't those two of the contestants on the show?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly. So I understand wanting to cash in on that, but such a stupid title. It didn't make sense. And I like you, I'm a big fan of James Bond movies. And I think the James Bond titles are usually really cool. But what the hell is Quantum of Solace?
You want me to tell you? Because I know this. Because I've had this discussion with someone else before.
Please, dude. It's a dumb title. It up?
So quantum is one of the smallest amounts of measurement you can have, and solace is the least amount of emotion you can have. So the idea is I feel the least amount of emotion for the least possible amount of time. That's essentially what it boils down to. Sorry, I'll take my nerd
I guess my first thoughts were like,
yeah, it's not a great title, but the wording, like, it's got the Q in there, which is always interesting. But yeah,
my first thoughts when I heard it was like, what the living daylights is Quantum of Solace? See what I did there?
Yeah,
that's pretty good. So I mentioned with my wife that we were going to do this topic on the podcast, and she immediately said Ishtar, which is, one of my favorite movies of all time. And she's like, what a stupid title for a movie. What's it about? And I'm like, well, that's like a fictional country, over in Africa where this takes place. And she's like, that is a dumb title. And I'm like, it kind of is a dumb title. Yeah, so I get it. And I wanted to mention there's 2 B movies that have B movie titles, if ever. The Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies. That's one.
But that title tells me what that movie's about. I'm okay with that.
it's
dumb.
So long and dumb.
It's just, now if you watch it and it's about ballet dancers, that's a terrible title.
Problem.
But if it is what it describes, I'm perfectly okay with that title.
I guess. And then, of course, the last one I want to mention was the great cinematic masterpiece from 1969. Can Hieronymus Merkin ever forget Mercy Hump and find true happiness? Like a terrible title. And I think maybe that was the point. I don't even know what
most of those words mean.
I know. They're just these weird names, right? I think that was maybe the point when they made the movie. They just make a weird title that'll just kind of stand out. But anyway, these are all honorable mentions. You had one honorable mention.
I had one. So I want to tell you, when we get to my list, all of the movies on my list are actually great movies with terrible titles.
Okay.
And this is my honorable mention. It falls into that category completely. And it is The Silence of the Lambs. If you know
that's a good one. Yeah.
You know nothing about this movie. You've never read the book. You don't know that Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins are in it. You know nothing. Someone just says, do you want to go see that movie called The Silence of the Lambs? And you're like, does it take place on a farm? Is it about a slaughterhouse? Like, what's this movie about? Oh, it's about an FBI tracking a serial killer. How do you get that from this title? Like, again, I didn't watch this movie for probably 10 years or more after it came out. I knew it got a lot of glamorous accolades and it won all these awards and it was this awards darling. But I couldn't wrap my head around why I should watch a movie called Silence of the Lambs. The title just threw me off so much. It was at least 10 years after it came out before I finally watched it. And I'm like, this movie's great. This title is stupid. So that's my honorable mention.
Okay, good. Well, then let's get into our top 5 list. We'll start with your number 5. We'll work our way up to number 1. We'll go back and forth. So start us off. Your number 5 worst movie title of all time.
All right. So again, fairly decent movie. Nominated for a bunch of awards. Even won a couple of Oscars. I think it won a performance Oscar. So the movie came out in 2009. And the title is Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire. That's the title.
Right,
so now,
right. I always think of it as just Precious, but it's got that whole subtitle.
So my understanding, I did some reading on this. There's sort of different takes on it. So there's 2 reasons that I got overwhelmingly why it was called this. Number one, the same year this movie came out, and about 3 or 4 months before this movie came out, there was another movie that came out called Push, and it was about like people with superpowers. And one of the characters had like a telekinetic thing where he could use his brain to like push objects, hence the title Push for that movie. And while it didn't do well financially, they didn't want to release 2 movies in the same year in such a short time span with the same title, especially since this one was likely to be nominated for awards, which it was. So that was one of the reasons they couldn't just call this Push, which was the name of the book that it was based upon. The second reason I found that it was named this was part of the movie deal that the author had was whatever title you choose, you have to specifically say somewhere in the title based on the novel Push by Sapphire, because she wanted to make sure, as the author, she got proper recognition for her work. And hey, my hat's off to you. If you can get that into a contract, good for you.
Right.
But to your point, most people just eventually ended up calling this movie Precious. I believe when it came out on video and DVD, they just shortened it to Precious. And anyone who ever talks about this movie outside of, super duper film circles is just going to call it Precious. But technically the title is Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire. Dumb. Figure it out. This is my number 5 pick because this is just a ridiculous title for, again, it was a good movie. It deals with some super heavy topics. It's very depressing. It's very sad. But in the year it came out, like, it was definitely in the top movies, which is why it was nominated for a bunch of awards, including, I believe, Best Picture. And it did win an Oscar, I want to say, for Best Supporting Actress, if I remember correctly. So
Yes, it did. And I also remember that the lead actress, she was nominated too. And of all people, Mariah Carey was really good in it, in that role. Okay.
Sorry, I'm just looking it up here. It won 2 Oscars. It was nominated for a whole bunch of them. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actress in a Lead, Best Actress Supporting, Best Achieving Directing, Best Screenplay. Like, it was an awards darling.
Yeah, so, Monique, I believe, won for Best Supporting Actress.
Yes.
Yeah, for the mom. Okay, my number 5. We actually reviewed this movie recently, Derek. I'm going with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Oh, we literally just did this one a few weeks ago. And we talked about the terrible title.
Exactly. That's why I thought it was appropriate. And the thing is, me, it's always going to be Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. None of this Episode 4, 5, 6 crap. So that's one strike against the title. But another is The Phantom Menace. Like, when we reviewed this movie, like you said, we sort of unsuccessfully tried to figure out what the hell the Phantom Menace even meant. So I was looking into it. So it's been mentioned that the title might refer to Darth Sidious, or maybe it refers to Palpatine, being like a Sith Lord or something. But for me, I always thought it should be referring to the fact that a kid is about to transform into Darth Vader. So
that was always my assumption.
Yeah.
My takeaway, which again, we talked about when we reviewed the movie.
I just think the fact that no one can even really put a finger on what the Phantom Menace means is proof that it's a bad title. And just for good measure, the movie sucks too. So that's my number 5. So what do you got for number 4?
All right. Number 4, again, good movie, terrible title. Okay. The movie is from 1985. It's called Brazil, directed by Terry Gilliam.
Good one, yeah.
Okay. The movie does not take place in Brazil. The movie does not have any characters from Brazil. Nobody in the movie is named Brazil. I don't know why it was called Brazil. It's like this dystopian sci-fi movie. It's this weird, Gilliam's movies are always in that sort of vein. I never understood why this was called Brazil. It just, and again, this came out in 85. It was probably 2000 before I ever saw this movie. And largely because people in my circles were like, oh, well, this is sort of your bag. Like you like the director, you like his style, you like the performers, you like this sort of dystopian, you like the way that his visual style of making the movies. They're like, you're going to dig this film. And I did. But the title I never understood why it was called Brazil. And then, so again, doing homework for the podcast, I looked it up, and I found, again, don't know if this is true because you never know on the podcast. It says the film Brazil is named so because it reflects the stark contrast between the cheerful, dreamlike quality of a song called Brazil by someone named Ari Barroso, which is apparently used in the film, and the dystopian, oppressive society depicted on screen, creating a sense of irony and highlighting the absurdity of the situation.
Oh, God. There's
Now,
no
if
way
I-
a title should have that much going on.
How would
in
I
it.
know
Yeah.
any of that just from saying there's a movie called Brazil? Like, this is whether or not this is correct. I mean, it's a stretch. It's a big stretch, and I think you would have to really do some homework after even watching this movie to make this connection. Like, this is one of those ones where you're in film class and the teacher's like, well, this is what this means. And everyone's going, are you sure? Are you sure you weren't like smoking something before you came up with that idea? Like, well, I'm not saying they weren't smoking something when they made this movie, but yeah, the movie's interesting. If you're into sci-fi dystopian, it's an 80s movie. It's Terry Gilliam. If that's sort of your jam, you'll probably like this movie if you haven't already seen it. But if you just said, we're going to see this movie called Brazil, I'm like, and it's about what? People on vacation on the beach? Is it about Carnival? Like, what are we going to Brazil for? Oh, no, it doesn't actually take place in Brazil. Like, dumb, stupid title. So my number 4, Brazil.
And like you mentioned, like it's like Terry Gilliam's films are weird, but it's not like this was a convention for him. Like Time Bandits, great title. Like that's what it's about, you know? But yeah, that's a good one. Okay, my number 4, I'm going with a 1984 horror film, Chud. And the thing is,
now, if I recall,
yep,
that's an acronym that is spelled out on the poster.
Yeah, it's not just CHUD. It's C period, H period, U period, D period. And it stands for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. Yes, that's right. Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers.
But that's a
CHUD.
description. If that's what I get in the movie, I think that's a good title. I think it's absurd.
Yeah.
But I think it's descriptive. I don't have a problem with that.
It's just dumb. It's a dumb title, Chud. And so if you're not familiar with the movie, before he was in Big, or before he was the dad from Home Alone, John Hurd teamed up with Daniel Stern to star in this beauty. So it turns out that toxic waste is being disposed beneath the streets of New York City. And there's homeless people that are living in the sewers, and they transform into these like cannibalistic monsters. But the thing is, there's more, because it turns out that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has been storing the toxic waste in these containers marked as contamination hazard urban disposal. That's right. Chud.
Oh, you got a second Chud.
Yeah,
Okay.
the double meaning on the Chud. So apparently the director was like, I don't know, trying to prey on people's fears of like toxic waste and, you know, all the anxieties of the Cold War from the Reagan administration and, you know, all the environmental deregulation. All he did was make this movie about like just toxic. This whole movie is like toxic waste. And it had a title to match. So Chud's my number 4 worst movie title of all time. So what's your number 3?
All right. My number 3, we actually reviewed this on the podcast.
Oh, good.
Way back from 2014, starring Tom Cruise. The title is actually Edge of Tomorrow.
I thought that when we watched it too. What a dumb title. That's a good one.
So this title is so bad that they actually renamed the movie when they released it on video. And now when you see it show up on streaming services and you go to buy the Blu-ray, it shows up as Live, Die, Repeat, which is a much more descriptive title of what this movie is about. And, you know, if you said
that was the catchphrase or something, or the tagline.
Like the tagline.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And now, if you look it up, in many cases, it's called Live, Die, Repeat, brackets, Edge of Tomorrow, or Edge of Tomorrow dash Live, Die, Repeat. Because they understand that the movie didn't do that well theatrically. And the number one feedback from anyone was, I had no idea what this movie was about, other than it had Tom Cruise, which, hey, I'll be honest, you tell me Tom Cruise in a new movie, I'm probably going to go see it. And I did. But a lot of people are like, I need to have an idea what this movie's about. And this title meant nothing to most people. But then when it went on a video, Live, Die, Repeat, people were like, oh, with Tom Cruise, that could be interesting. Let's take a look. And they watched it. So I'm like, the fact that the people who made this movie realized within a year of it being released that the title needed to be changed speaks volumes to the fact that the original title was garbage.
No kidding.
I know we talked a little bit about this when we reviewed the movie, and I think this is one of the ones on my list that people are going to recognize and know the most. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time on it. I'm just going to say my number 3 pick, Edge of Tomorrow, brackets, Live, Die, Repeat. Live, Die, Repeat, way better title.
Yeah, I agree. No, that's a good one. My number 3, I like movies from the 80s. So I'm going with 1987's Leonard Part 6. So, go back to 1987. Who wasn't willing to shell out money to go to the movie theater to see Bill Cosby when you could see him on TV every Thursday night? Nobody, it turns out. So, it's supposed to be like a spy movie starring this guy named Leonard. And the title actually refers to the fact that there were 5 installments before this one, but they were all hidden due to national security reasons. Stupid title, stupid concept, stupid movie. The movie was a total flop. It made $4.6 million against a budget of $45 million. It was universally panned. Gene Siskel said it was worse than Ishtar, which according to my wife is another bad title.
That's saying something.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's not just that it's a stupid movie, and it is, but it's such a terrible movie title. One of the worst movie titles ever. So it makes number 3 on my list. So on to your number 2.
All right. My number 2, again, this is a great movie that most people have never seen because the title is stupid, but I actually want us to watch this on the podcast at some point.
Okay.
It's from 2017, and it's called Baby Driver. Now, do you think this movie's about a baby driving a car?
Yeah,
or
what I'm thinking.
Or a single dad who's got to drive his kids around town? No, it's none of those things. It's about people. It's about like a crew that robs banks, and the getaway driver is this like prodigy, best race car driver you ever met in your life, and he just goes by the name Baby. That's why it's called Baby Driver. But you don't know that until you watch the movie. Now, apparently, there is a Simon and Garfunkel song called Baby Driver, which is used in the credits, but is not referenced in the movie, is not played in the movie. It's just, we'll pick up on that. So again, depending on your age, maybe you're familiar with this song and you have a nostalgic attachment. You're like, oh, that's named after this song I like. Perhaps getting you to buy a ticket and go into the theater. The movie came out in 2017. Like, come on. Is my grandpa going to see Baby Driver because he knows this song by Simon and Garfunkel from probably the 60s or the 70s? No. This movie was targeted for young people. It's got all these young, hot, attractive people robbing banks and driving fast cars. Like, again, it's actually a really good movie, but the title is awful. And I only recently saw this movie because, again, people I know that I respect their movie opinion said, this one's pretty good. You should watch it. Like, look at who's in the cast. I'm like, okay. You're talking me into it. And I was pleasantly surprised at how much I liked it. But man, terrible title. Does not tell you what the movie's about. In fact, implies something completely different than what the movie's about that would make you not want to watch it. But my number 2 pick, Baby Driver from 2017.
Nice. So my number 2, I like a lot of movies from the 80s. Mine is actually a lot newer. So in 2011, Cameron Crowe, the guy behind Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Almost Famous and Say Anything and Jerry Maguire, like he's got a huge pedigree. He decides to make this movie starring Scarlett Johansson and Matt Damon. That's your boyfriend. So this is a movie is about a young couple that bought a dilapidated zoo. So the movie title is, of course, We Bought a Zoo. The first time I heard this movie title...
Sorry, I'm cutting you off. That tells me what the movie's about. We Bought a Zoo.
But it's a stupid title. The first time I heard it, I was like, what the hell is this?
But it tells you exactly what the movie's about. Are you interested in the escapades of we, implying more than one person, probably a married couple or a family, buys a zoo? I don't know. That may not be my jam, but I know exactly what to expect if I buy a ticket.
But it's a dumb title.
It's a terrible title.
Dumb.
I don't want to see that movie. It sounds stupid.
You're right. It exactly describes what the movie's about, but I think that's what's wrong with it. I mean, like, why not call it like Zookeepers or The Monkey Cage or something? I don't know, like that. Like, I mean,
but if it's
We
called
Bought a Zoo.
Cage, I have no idea what it's about. Now at least I know it's called, like, what you're describing is a bait and switch. Give it a more creative title so people come in and have no idea. I don't want a movie I know nothing about. I want the title to give me at least some idea what I'm getting in for.
Zookeepers doesn't do that?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, is that any better or worse than We Bought a Zoo?
Yeah,
well,
it is.
Call it We Bought a Zoo brings with it certain connotations. Zookeeper could just be like a night at the museum. The guy gets hired to work at the zoo. Like, again, why would I want to watch that? That sounds boring. But We Bought a Zoo.
We Bought a Zoo is boring too. I don't give a
why
about two people that bought a zoo. It's like stupid. It's just dumb. I'd rather watch a movie about two people that move back to Love Canal or something like that. Like, it's just so stupid. So I don't know. I think it's dumb. We Bought a Friggin' Zoo. It's a stupid movie title, and it's a stupid movie that I'll never ever watch. So it's my number 2. So I don't care if it's a little too direct, I guess. I don't know. So what do you got for your number 1 worst movie title of all time?
I am going to land on a single movie, but really I'm just going to talk about my number 1 movie title, bad movie title, pet peeve. And I'm going to give you a whole bunch of examples, but I will land on one for my number 1. If a movie title is simply the name of a fictional character that I have no relationship to because they've been created for this movie, you can't just call the movie the name of the character. So, examples. Jackie Brown, John Wick, Jerry Maguire, Glengarry Glen Ross, Hancock. Like, I don't know who any of these people are. Why would I want to go and see a movie named after a fictional character? Like, at least if you called it James Bond, and James Bond has already had 20 movies out and I know who that character is, I have a preconceived knowledge of what's happening. Now, if it's a movie based on a real life person, say like Aaron Brockovich, I may not know who that
Nixon,
but
JFK.
Yeah, but if it's based on a real person, that there's a chance I may know who they are, or I even just Google their name and go, oh, Aaron Brockovich was an environmental activist. Now I have an idea of what this movie might be about. But to name the movie John Wick, it's an interesting movie name, but is this a romance? Is this an action? Is this a sci-fi?
Is it a candle maker?
I don't know. Yeah, I have no concept. So the number 1 that I'm going to land on is a movie called Larry Crown. Have you ever heard of it? It's from
Never
2011.
even heard of it. No.
It stars Tom Hanks.
Okay.
And it's about a guy, like a slightly older guy, like maybe in his late 40s, early 50s, so sort of in our ballpark, gets fired from his job and decides to go back to college. Would you have gotten that from a movie title called Larry Crown, which is literally the character's name?
No,
of course not. So this is my number 1 bad movie title, movie pet peeve. Do not name your movie after a made-up character and just give it that name. I hate it. This is right up there with people in the snow that don't wear hats on TV because you don't want to mess up their hair. Right. It's like, oh my God, it drives me bananas. So my number 1, I'm going to go with Larry Crown, just because that was the very first one that came to mind. And again, I actually watched Larry Crown. It was okay. It was a typical Tom Hanks movie. It's one of these sort of feel-good movies. The old guy goes back to school and he relates to the young kids and he teaches them life lessons and they teach him life lessons and blah, blah, blah. It's your typical feel-good Tom Hanks movie from, it's from 2011. Like, it's exactly what you would expect once you know what it's about. But you tell me a movie called Larry Crown. I have no, is this, and it's Crown with an E. So it's like, it's not even like, oh, Larry Crown. Like, is this someone royalty? Like, he's literally wearing the king's crown? No, it's not. Like, terrible title. And don't do this. Movie people, I know you're asking me for my opinion, all you famous, important movie people. I'm giving you my opinion. Don't name your movie after this. Or call it like Larry Crown Goes Back to School. Like, give me more than
Larry
just
Goes
their
to
name.
College.
You know? Exactly. Some of them, John Wick, the assassin. Okay, now I'm interested. I don't know who John Wick is, but you've given me a detail. Don't just call it the name of the character. Oh my God, that drives me insane. So that's my number 1.
That's a good. Okay, so my number 1. This one was tough because the title is so bad that it's good. And it's become synonymous with bad movie titles. And I think you could probably make the argument that it is the standard bearer for bad movie titles. And that's Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo.
No, nice.
Oh, yes. It's a bizarre title that has nothing to do with the movie. So the worst thing is Boogaloo refers to the name of one of the actors in the movie, Boogaloo Shrimp, even though his character in the movie is named Turbo. So, and he's not even the lead character. And it's not even like the community center they're trying to save is like being renamed Electric Boogaloo or anything. I think Electric Boogaloo is a dance. It's like a kind of dance, but it's a funk dance. It's not even break dancing. So again, no idea whatsoever why this is the title of the movie. And the best thing is that this title is now used as a snow clone. Are you familiar with that term, Derek? Snow clone? Yeah.
No, I don't know that.
So here's the definition. I'm going to read it out for you verbatim. A snow clone is a cliched phrase in which one or more words can be substituted to express a similar idea in a different context, often to humorous or sarcastic effect. And you and I have used it here on the podcast because it's always fun to say a movie title, followed by the number 2 and then Electric Boogaloo, like Teen Wolf 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah.
You know, Star Trek 2, Electric Boogaloo. You know, and of course, my personal favorite, Star Wars Episode 2, Electric Boogaloo. Always like that one. So, you know, so anyway, that's my number 1, Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Oh, you know, that's so Chris, you don't want to know why that's perfect. About an hour before we sat down to record this, I'm listening to my All 80s channel on Sirius XM, as I often do.
Oh, yeah, you like to listen to that.
And the song There's No Stopping Us from the original Break-In movie soundtrack by Ollie and Jerry came on.
Oh,
and I was just singing along and bopping my head. So the fact that you reference Breakin' 2, it ties it all full circle for me. It's been a good night.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. And let's just keep the good night going with some of this.
Fun with Caveman.
So, Derek, this time it's over to you to have some fun with me. So what have you got lined up for us?
Oh, you're going to love this. We are going to play a variation on our famous game, Pick the Flick.
Pick the flick. Yeah, pick the flick. You get the synopsis, then pick the flick. You get the year, pick the flick.
All right, so what do you got?
All right, so leaning on my number 1 that we just talked about here, there's a lot of movies where the only title is the name of a fictional character.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't always translate well into other languages. So at least when these movies get shown in foreign countries, people are smart enough when they translate it to call it something other than the character's name.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you the name of the movie from another country and the year it came out, and I want you to guess it. Now, you're probably not going to get a lot of them, so after I do that, I will then give you the description of the movie.
It's more to have
in
for
most
fun.
cases will be a dead giveaway. And in many of these descriptions, the name of the character is referenced, so I just change it to say the title character. So when I say that, that's a substitute for the character they're talking about, which is the name of the movie. All right?
Okay.
All right, so in Spanish, this movie was called Sin Control. It came out in 2014.
Sin Control. Oh, I don't know.
Okay, I'll give you the description. Again, 2014.
All right.
The title character is a former hitman grieving the loss of his true love. When his home is broken into, robbed, and his dog is killed, he is forced to return to action to extract revenge. Again, in Spanish, it was called Sin Control.
Don't know.
That's John Wick.
Oh, again, I've never
Just
seen a
talked
John
about
Wick
it.
movie. So
Okay.
yeah.
Some of these are going to be easier than others, but some of them are real law balls. This one's going to be a little tougher. Okay, this one's from 2003.
Okay.
In French, it was translated into the title Tough Love.
Tough. And sorry, what was the year?
2003.
2003. Tough Love. Yeah, I don't know.
Get it? Okay. Here's the description of this movie from 2000. I'm going to read the description, then I'll tell you again what it was called in French. The title character is assigned by a crime boss to kidnap the brother of a prominent district attorney, and a beautiful woman known only as Ricky is sent to stay with him to make sure he doesn't mess up the job. In French, it was called Tough Love.
No idea.
It was the infamous movie Gigli.
Oh,
Ben
God.
And
Gigli.
Jennifer-
Again, never seen
Jennifer,
it. Another bad movie title, by the way.
Yeah.
Gigli. Oh, what a
Okay.
terrible movie title.
All right. This one from 2011. The French title was It's Never Too Late from 2011.
No idea.
All right. It's a nice, easy one for you. After losing his job, a middle-aged man reinvents himself by going back to college. And in French, it was called It's Never Too Late.
And it was from 2011?
Yes. Just talked about it
Don't
at
have
length.
a clue. Don't have a clue.
Larry Crown. I just talked about it.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Come on,
jeez.
man.
Oh, jeez.
All right. I think this is an easy one. It came out in 1993.
Okay.
And in Spanish, it was called President for a Day.
Is it Dave? Hey, yes. Because you had me watch that one once. Yeah.
I did have you watch it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. This one from 1990. This is a big movie. 1996.
All right.
In German, they called it The Game of Life.
And it was from 96?
Yes. Remember, all these movies are just the name of a character.
Oh, sorry. So they're all naming the character.
Yeah.
The Game of Life, 96 would have been Jerry Maguire?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm starting to zone in on this. I gotta get the whole character thing. Maybe I missed that.
Okay. This one's a little tougher. It's from 1991.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you two translations that are similar. In Portuguese, it was called Hollywood Delusions. And in Italian, it was called It Happened in Hollywood. It's from 1991.
91. And it's named after a character.
Yep.
91. Oh, jeez. I don't know.
Okay, the description, a renowned New York playwright is enticed to California to write for the movies and discovers the hellish truth of Hollywood. Again, in Portuguese, it was called Hollywood Delusions, and in Italian, it was called It Happened in Hollywood.
Still have no idea.
Barton Fink.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Yeah, that was tough. Okay, this one's super easy. 1997. In Spanish, it was simply called Triple Betrayal.
Triple Betrayal in 97.
Mm-hmm.
Triple Betrayal, named after a character.
Correct?
The only movie from 97 I can remember that had a character's name was Austin Powers.
No, it's not Austin Powers. Okay, I'll read you the description.
Please, yeah.
From 1997.
Okay.
A flight attendant with a criminal past gets nabbed by the ATF for smuggling under pressure to become an informant against the illegal arms dealer she works for. She must find a way to secure her future without getting killed. And in Spanish, it was called Triple Betrayal.
Oh, that's Jackie Brown.
Yes.
Okay.
Nice.
Got it from the description. Okay.
Okay. 1992. This is a tough one. 1992, in Portuguese, it was called Candidate for Power.
1992. Candidate for Power.
This is a tough one.
No idea.
All right. So the description: a conservative folk singer turns his hands to politics, running for the U.S. Senate. He is not above dirty tricks and smear campaigns to gain an advantage over his opponent. In Portuguese, it was called Candidate for Power.
In 92.
Yep.
No clue.
It was called Bob Roberts. Starred Tim Robbins. It's excellent.
I'd
if you've
heard
never
of
seen
it. Yeah, I'd never seen it.
It's really good.
Yeah.
All right. I saved some easier ones for the end. We're just past the halfway. Okay. 2000. The German translation is I Will Dance.
2000. I Will Dance. I have no idea.
All right. The description: a talented young boy becomes torn between his unexpected love of dance and the disintegration of his family.
Is it Billy
German,
Elliot? Billy Elliot?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Billy
Yeah.
Elliot.
I remember
I Will Dance in German. Good
Very
job.
good.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. 1994. Big movie year. 1994. In Portuguese, this one was called The Storyteller.
From 94. Oh, Forrest Gump.
Yes.
Yeah. It's got to be.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Okay.
2007. I'm going to give you two titles. They're both in Spanish, but from different Spanish-speaking countries. The first one was called Grow, Run, and Stumble. The second one was called Pregnant by Accident. From 2007.
But it has to be a character's name in the title. I was thinking like Knocked Up, but it's...
Nope.
I have no idea.
All right. The description from 2007. Faced with an unplanned pregnancy, an offbeat young woman makes a selfless decision regarding her unborn child.
I know this. It's Juno.
Yes.
I got it from the description. Yes, that movie
in Spanish,
was
it was either called Grow, Run, and Stumble or Pregnant by Accident. Yep. All right.
Grow, Run, and Stumble. What a
I don't know.
name.
Sometimes the translation is really weird.
Yeah.
All right. It might have been like an alliteration in Spanish.
I'd like to know what Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was called.
No kidding.
You know,
all right. We got 3 left.
not Grow, Run, and Stumble, let me tell you.
Yeah, no kidding. This first one you may not get, but I think the next two you'll get for sure. Okay.
Sure.
1995. We got 2 in a row here from 1995.
All right.
1995. This first one in Greek is called In the Name of Honor. And in Spanish, it was called The Passion of a Rebel.
95? No clue. No idea.
All right, I'll read you the description.
Yep.
In 1713 Scotland, the title character is wronged by a nobleman and his nephew, becomes an outlaw in search of revenge while fleeing the Redcoats and faces charges of being a Jacobite. In Greek, it was called In the Name of Honor, and in Spanish, it was called The Passion of a Rebel.
Braveheart?
Not Braveheart, but this movie is often compared to as, a lesser Braveheart. 'Cause it came
Rob
around-
Roy?
Rob Roy.
Yes.
That's the one.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. 2 to go. These are 2 easy ones. You should get both of them.
Okay.
All right. 1995 as well with this one. I'm going to give you 2 translations. Let me finish both of them because you might get it right away. The first one is a slob to fall in love with in Portuguese. And the second one in Spanish is silly, but not that stupid. From 1995. The character's name is the title.
I'm trying to remember the year, but would it be Tommy Boy?
It is not. But you're warm. You're really warm. Want to take a second guess? Or I'll just read you the description.
Beverly Hills Ninja?
Let me read you the description.
Okay.
In order to inherit his fed-up father's hotel empire, the immature and lazy title character must repeat grades 1 through 12 all over again. The further he progresses, the harder his hated rival tries to stop him.
Billy Madison.
That's the one. You got it.
Okay.
All right. Last one, 1977. I guarantee you're going to get this. In German, it was called The Urban Neurotic.
Annie Hall.
Yes, of course. Andy.
Got that one. That was
nice.
easy.
Nice. There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Some of those were really
Some
hard.
of those were pretty tough. Yeah.
I don't know what the hell. I zoned out there for a second. I didn't realize the first couple ones that they were based on a character's name. So it was throwing me off. So then
all good, man. You did good. You came back. The first couple were kind of tough anyway.
Yeah.
But you got there. So, yeah, no, I found when I was doing the homework for this, I was trying to figure out how to find these titles. And then when you go to the IMDb, there's actually a category right at the bottom. It says movie also known as, and it gives you a list of every title of the movie and like all the countries it's ever been released in.
That's a really cool thing.
It took me a while to go through them all, but like a movie like John Wick in most countries was just still called John Wick.
Sure.
But a bunch of them had those other translations. So if you're interested in this idea about any movie, you can just go to the IMDb and it'll tell you. So
yeah, because a lot of times, like, no matter what the language is, the person's name stays the same.
Well, that's exactly it. But much like my pet peeve, some people obviously realized that's not going to bring people into the theater. We need to give them an idea what this movie's actually about. So
yeah, I remember when I was living in Toronto back in the early 90s, watching they had like these local TV stations that were in like Portuguese and like Spanish and all these stuff. And I put it on and there'd be like an Italian one or something like that. And then it was always funny because it always stood out because the person's name was the only thing you understood. Mm-hmm. You know, it'd be like Perindia, Scorindia, Barindira, Bandira, Wayne Gretzky. Like, what the hell? It just said, so anyway, that always stood out. Okay, so next time out, we're going to do another movie review. Actually, I think it might be a lot of fun to go back and watch one of the movies from tonight's topic. So a movie with a bad title.
Oh,
so
jeez.
I'm going to make you watch one of my movies. Okay, so what else would I have you watch other than the 1984 luminary film, Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo? We are going to watch it, starring Boogaloo Shrimp and Shabadoo. It's available on Amazon Prime and also on Tubi. So I'm going to have you watch Breakin' 2. Have you ever seen it?
I've seen parts of it because it was running on one of the 80s channels for a while, and I thought I should watch this, but
So I had never seen it, and then recently, like within the last year, I remember there was a time, I think it was last spring, I got really ill. I got sick, and I was like in bed for like a day, and I had to take the day off work or something like that. And so I was just laying upstairs. I was in bed. I'm like, what am I going to do? I got to put on TV. So I put on TV, and I put on Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo because I saw it was on the thing, and I watched a little bit of it. I'm like, oh my God, it's something. So I didn't watch all of it. It made me sicker, I think. So I just thought it would be fun to go back and watch, because it's such a, it's such a not iconic movie, but just the title alone is like, everybody knows it. Everybody knows the movie, but nobody's ever seen it. It's one of those kind of movies, you know? So I thought it'd be interesting for us to watch it. So
we may discover there's a reason nobody's seen
Probably
it. Probably watch it again.
It'll be
I'll
fun
go in
to
with an open mind. Okay.
Yep, please do. And we'll break it right down, and we will.
Oh, I saw what you did there.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So until then, I'm Chris McBrien, and on behalf of myself and our producer Sloth, and of course Derek Myers, we all want to say thanks for taking the time to listen to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.